Countless times have I reflected upon that moment, turned it over, dissected it, begged it to yield some rational seam. But the transition between here and there continues to elude me entirely. I remember approaching the doorway of my house to leave for work, my back half turned, arm lifted in the familiar morning gesture as I waved to my mother. It was all so ordinary, so mechanical. Wake up, get dressed, step out the door. Then I crossed the threshold. And as I turned away from her, everything changed. I froze mid-stride, my arm still half raised, as if reality itself had forgotten to move with me. The scene before me was not merely altered, but replaced. The recently risen sun had been displaced by a dying one, its last embers smoldering on the rooftops in a sinister, burnt orange glow. I stood in a world that looked like mine only in the way a dream half resembles waking life. Familiar outlines wearing a stranger's face. My mind snapped into a frantic, analytical tremor, clawing for any scrap of sense. Something fundamental had been violated. I withdrew my phone with trembling hands. 6:45 a.m. The time insisted I was sane, insisted the morning had only just begun, insisted the world was as it should be. Yet the sky accused those numbers of being liars. I scanned the houses across the street, and unease scattered across my mind in frantic sparks. At first, I couldn't place the wrongness. My brain rejected it, refused to register what it saw. But then the architectural sins revealed themselves. Windows placed at impossible heights, door frames tilted like warped jaws, chimneys laid sideways as though mocking the idea of function. The houses stood as malformed parodies, contorted impressions. Someone or something had sculpted after only vaguely understanding what a home should look like. Trying to trace the moment of transition back to a single blink, a misstep, a breath proved useless, yet somehow 30 minutes slipped past me. The sun had begun sinking even lower, coiling itself behind the horizon like a dying beast, before I even acknowledged the passage of time. A thin, dreadful panic began to scratch its way up through my thoughts. I retreated into my home. All the lights were off. My calls to my mother went unanswered. The silence inside the house was not merely empty. It was expectant, like a held breath. I groped for the nearest light switch and flicked it. Nothing. Again. And again. I flicked it with mounting fury, as though persistence alone could force the room to obey. But darkness clung stubbornly to every corner. My mother's absence, so immediate, so inexplicable, splintered the fragile composure I had tried to maintain. The time said morning, the world said night. She had just been here. Now the house felt abandoned, hollowed out. I collapsed on the staircase with my knees pulled tight against my chest and wept, helpless, disoriented, and trembling under the pressure of a reality that no longer followed its own rules. Somewhere in the midst of my sobbing, my ears adapted to the oppressive quiet, sharpening like a predator's out of instinct. Beneath that silence, faint yet unmistakable, I heard footsteps, delicate, distant. I rose, heart hammering, and followed the ghostly sounds. But every room was empty. Then came more. Light switches flipping, the sizzle of food cooking, doors opening and closing. Faint, echo-like imitations of life, impossible to locate. When I stepped toward a sound, it never grew clearer. It remained distant, as though the noises belonged to a home that was overlapping mine. Desperate, I checked my phone again. No signal. No internet. Moving through the house changed nothing. Even the router lights were dead. Outside, the last ember light of the fall sunset bled away, leaving the world cold and unwelcoming. The warmth retreated with it. I stepped onto the sidewalk in a final attempt to reach someone, anyone, and beneath the streetlight, my phone suddenly lit with a single bar of signal. It was unnaturally cold, a cold without season, the kind that feels less like air and more like some invisible pressure drawing all warmth into itself. My fingers numbed almost instantly as I lifted my phone. I called my closest acquaintance, Ken. Looking back, the very idea feels absurd, almost laughably tragic. I think I simply wanted validation, Some proof that the world remained tethered to sanity, that I remained tethered to sanity. Realistically, calling Ken was the worst possible decision. That bastard has never been able to remain serious for more than 5 minutes. Even in the best of circumstances, he treated every moment like some tedious joke, a stage upon which he could perform his second-rate wit. To think he believed I was getting him back for some nonsense from last week, some petty thing that even I had forgotten. Then he hung up, just like that, after muttering that he had something important to do. The sheer dismissal, it struck deeper than it should have, as if something at that moment confirmed a suspicion I had long ignored, that my life had been built upon crumbling bridges I never had the courage to burn. If only I had ended that miserable relation years ago, I can't say we ever shared a moment worth remembering. Nothing that justified holding on to such dead weight. Perhaps if I had severed that tie, I could have poured myself into my studies, into the sciences, into the work that had once set my mind alight, instead of drowning my days in that sickening job that ground the soul to pulp. Regret appeared in my mind like a many-limbed creature, gripping, tightening, asking, where would you begin, and when would it end? Regardless, after that infuriating and utterly useless chat with Ken, I chose to take a risk. I called the authorities. "Police, what's your emergency?" A young woman answered from the other side of the line. Her voice was steady, clipped, unmistakably human, and for a moment that alone was enough to make my chest unclench. But beneath that relief was something else, something far uglier, the fear that she too would dismiss me like Ken had, that she might leave me stranded here in this impossible place. "Hello, it's a little hard to explain, but I think I'm lost, ma'am." Lost. The word tasted small, pitiful. I knew even as I said it that it was inadequate, a flimsy label for something so much more grotesque. "All right, you're lost, I understand. I'm here with you. Can you tell me your name, please? And do you know where you are right now? Even approximately?" Her professionalism remained intact, but I sensed a thin membrane of doubt beneath it. "Sure, my name is Clark, and well, it's going to sound strange, but just please listen. I'm in my neighborhood, and I'm standing at the sidewalk before what is supposed to be my home. But everything is wrong. There are no vehicles on the road, the buildings are strange, and it's nighttime, but my phone says 7:30 a.m. "Okay, Clark. Thank you. You're doing fine. I just need to understand what's going on, so we can help you. You said the neighborhood looks like yours, but the buildings are different and the street is empty. Let me ask you a few questions to get a clearer picture. Does that sound okay?" Her suspicion seemed to recede, or perhaps it simply hid. With voices over the phone, one can never truly know. "Yes, ma'am, that's okay." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a sliver of relief, a fragile thread of connection to something sane. "Are you injured at all? Any pain, dizziness, difficulty breathing?" "I'm completely fine. I have no injuries at all." I ran my hands over myself, not out of necessity, but to anchor the truth of my own body. "Is there anyone else around you? Anyone you can see or hear?" "I see no one. The roads are empty, and the houses show no signs of life. No lights are on, no vehicles are present, and that includes the driveways." Even describing it aloud sent a tremor through me. As my eyes roamed the stillness, the accursed nature of the place seemed to sharpen, to come alive in its wrongness. "Does your home's address appear anywhere? On signs, doors, mailboxes, exactly as it should? Or is it different?" I hadn't checked for any home addresses before you asked, but after a quick look, no, I see nothing. The mailbox doesn't even have my name or address marked on it. "How long have you been there? Do you remember what you were doing right before you noticed something was wrong?" "I've been here for about an hour, maybe. I've tried to pinpoint when I got here, but I can't." "All right, Clark. Thank you. You're doing the right thing by staying on the line with me. Let me ask a few more things so we can figure out exactly what's happening. What do the buildings look like? Are they similar to the ones in your neighborhood? Same shape, size, style, or are they entirely different?" "The buildings look like cursed imitations of the houses of my neighborhood. The more I look at them, the more architectural errors I see. The front stairs have upside-down railings, the windows are way too high up, and there are random canopies. Speaking the description aloud didn't help. It didn't ease me. If anything, it deepened the horror, like naming a thing made it more solid, more irrevocably real. Do you hear anything at all? Wind, animals, distant cars, electricity, any ambient sound? I hear faint sounds of vehicles moving and life going by as it should, but I see no sign of anything here. If you look down at your feet, does the ground look normal? Pavement, grass. Does it look like what should be there, or does it look off too? Nothing looks right. All the colors and textures are not how they should be. I can't quite put my finger on it, but, for example, the green of the grass is not natural. It feels more like if it was painted by a painter who botched his color mixture. Thank you, Clark. That's very helpful. You're describing everything very clearly. It helps me understand how stressed or unsafe you're feeling. I'm going to initiate a trace on your call now. I need you to stay on the line while the system works. Okay? It may take a few moments. You might hear a brief click or some static. That's normal. Don't hang up. There was a brief pause. Nothing but her quiet breathing threaded through the silence, a strangely human tether stretching across a chasm of unreality. Clark, I'm getting an unusual routing pattern on your signal. It's not behaving like a normal mobile connection. I'm going to run a secondary trace. Just stay where you are. Don't move around unless you absolutely have to. Another pause. This time, I heard the faintest whisper. Accidental. Involuntary. That's not a standard tower bounce. A chill crawled under my skin. Clark, I still have your voice clearly, but the location data isn't matching any physical coordinates. It's drifting. The system is trying to lock onto you, but the return signature is distorted. I'm going to keep the trace running. Stay on the line, don't disconnect. Okay, just tell me what you need me to do. Alright, I've resumed the trace. I need you to stay as still as you can for the next few seconds. The system works better when the caller isn't moving. Please let me know as soon as you're not moving anymore. I'm not moving. Okay. Good. Stay just like that. I'm running the secondary trace now. You may hear a faint click. Don't be alarmed. As I held the phone to my ear, the air around me seemed to tighten. The temperature dropped, sharp, sudden, as though something had inhaled all warmth. A dread I can't describe hollowed out my chest. Clark, the signal footprint I'm getting from your phone is extremely unusual. The system is trying to triangulate you, but every time it locks onto a coordinate, it shifts by a few meters and then resets entirely, almost like your device is overlapping multiple locations at once. I still hear you clearly. Your voice quality is stable, but the return signal, the part that tells us where you are, isn't behaving like any normal call we've ever seen. I'm trying an older diagnostic tool. Just stay with me. Before the scan completes, I need you to confirm something. Are the sounds you're hearing, the distant cars, people, are they getting any clearer, louder, or are they staying faint and muffled? The sounds are still the same. Wait, I don't understand what you mean by my signal is overlapping multiple locations at once. I know it's confusing, Clark. When I say your signal is overlapping, I mean it's returning from several. Hold on. Something just shifted. A low hum vibrated across the line, followed by 2 soft clicks. Where is that coming from? She whispered, barely audible. Clark, your location just spiked. It jumped 1/2 kilometer in a fraction of a second. That's not possible. I'm initiating a 3rd trace. Stay absolutely still for me, all right? A faint pop of static. Then, wait, no, that can't be right. The system is reading your signal as if it's folding in on... Then, silence. Not the ordinary kind. Not a dropped call. Not static or glitch or background hiss. A perfect suffocating void. My call timer still advanced on the screen. Hello, can you hear me? Hello? My voice felt swallowed, devoured by something vast on the other side. The call timer froze mid-second. The screen flickered once. Call failed. Unknown error 000 Delta. I looked at my phone for about a minute, a cocktail of emotions swirling within me. Rage, hopelessness, depression, loneliness. Each one steeped in the bitterness of the other, forming a vile mixture of misery I could barely swallow. My hands trembled. The device felt heavier by the second, as though absorbing the gravity of my situation. I needed to think. I needed a plan. But thinking here felt like trying to breathe underwater. As if this ungodly place wished to wring the last drop of hope from me, my phone flashed a new message. 15% remaining. A countdown to doom. This phone is all I have. It is what I'm using to send out this message. Now, as I write this, it sits at 8%, the numbers falling like grains through an hourglass. And truthfully, I suspect I may die before my phone does. But I suppose I should explain why such a morbid thought feels less like fear and more like an inevitability. Because this place, this imitation of a neighborhood, is not empty. It only pretends to be. After struggling to digest that poisonous concoction of emotions, I finally accepted that using my phone further wouldn't save me. If the calls were useless, if the signal was a lie, then I had to observe the world itself. I had to confront it, as horrifying as that was. I reasoned, if the phone cannot help me, then perhaps someone could. I was still naive then, still clinging to the idea that the world behaved by rules I recognized. I hadn't yet understood the ungodly nature of this place. I know now that I still don't. But from what I've witnessed, what these eyes have swallowed like poison, I would rather die than learn more. Death, I fear, would be a mercy in comparison. I began my search by approaching the eerie imitation of my neighbor's house. There was no walkway, only that unnatural grass, stiff and incorrect beneath my shoes. I forced myself across it and onto the bizarre staircase. The railing was upside down, welded into the steps at wrong angles, and each riser was bafflingly mismatched in height, as though built by something that understood stairs only through rumor. The front door stretched upward toward the roof, impossibly tall enough for something 9 feet in height to pass beneath without bowing its head. Darkness clung to the porch like a living thing. I felt watched, violently, intimately watched. My hands shook. My breath felt foreign in my throat. I knew instinctively that my fear wasn't unfounded. Something here was observing me. To the left of the doorway, a slanted window sat far too high for me to peer through, tilted as though mocking the concept of right angles. On the right side, however, there was a small window positioned at knee height. I lowered myself and peered inside. At first, the darkness made it difficult to discern anything. Perhaps if the interior had resembled a normal home, even slightly, I could have made sense of it through familiarity alone. But this was chaos. Architecture born from a mind that had never met sanity. A spiral staircase led to nowhere, terminating in empty air. A towering library bookshelf stuffed not with books but kitchen appliances, ovens, kettles, a blender balanced sideways. Couches lay at odd, contorted angles, as though dropped from a great height. A lone toilet sat in one corner like an afterthought. The floor was littered with tissues, magazines, utensils, and stray stationery, all scattered as if tossed by a storm of senseless intent. It was bizarrely horrifying, an environment both stupid and malicious. But what came next eclipsed all of that. It is the event that led me back to this sidewalk, frozen with a fear so profound I can scarcely breathe as I recount it. The darkness inside the house hung like a black fog, thick, restless, suffocating. At first I thought it merely a trick of the light, but then it moved, a subtle ripple, a distortion. I blamed my imagination, accused it of fabricating horrors to fill the void. In any other circumstance, I could have forgiven myself for that. But not here. Not now. I closed my eyes, shook my head, tried to reset my thoughts. I told myself I was tired, overwhelmed, hallucinating. Just breathe, just focus. Then I opened my eyes. Nothing had improved. In fact, the darkness churned more violently, writhing, twisting, as though stirred by some unseen hand. And within it, something shifted. A shape, a presence, its outline grotesque and unmistakable. The figure was not human, not animal, not any earthly creature that evolution might have sculpted. It was a collection of irregular shapes, tentacles, deformities, appendages that bent in ways that offended logic itself. And then, slowly, sickeningly, more appeared. One by one, they emerged from the roiling void, amorphous shadow entities multiplying in impossible silence. And that was when I realized, truly and undeniably, I was not alone. Through what little reasoning I had left, threadbare and fraying under the weight of my abject horror, I decided to abandon that home and flee. There was no plan, no strategy. The impulse was primal, a terrified lurch toward anything else. I rose as silently as my shaking legs allowed and slipped across the threshold. The moment my foot touched the lawn, the darkness shifted. They were everywhere. Small, glowing eyes embedded within amorphous silhouettes that clung to the shadows like malignant stains. Their shapes were wrong, fluid yet somehow rigid, like smoke that had learned to imitate flesh. I bolted toward the road, and they drifted after me, gliding more than moving. Sharp appendages scraped at my ankles. Dry, wiry tendrils brushed across my back as though tasting me. I stumbled beneath a streetlight, and the things recoiled instantly. The light hurt them, or repelled them, or simply reminded them of whatever abyss they had crawled from. They possessed no physical form, so I could only guess. Perhaps they were some species of living darkness, parasites of the night itself. Light scattered them, but I don't believe it killed them. Not truly. A couple of times I caught thin, probing hands creeping up behind me when my back was turned. They would retreat the moment I noticed, slipping away like guilty thoughts, but the message was clear. They wanted to drag me into the dark. They were hungry. So I remained beneath the glow of the street lamp, a lone refuge in this cursed mock neighborhood. Driven by nothing noble, not hope, certainly, but that sick animal instinct to survive, I explored the streets where the light still held. That's when I noticed other movement, not the shadows, something else, something larger. At first, I forced reason onto it, told myself it was simply more of the shadow creatures. But if you ever find yourself in this place, you won't survive long enough to regret it. Do not trust reason. Rational thought dissolves here like sugar in water. I remember it, poorly hidden behind a house, as if playing some monstrous parody of a game. Emaciated fingers, impossibly long, curled over the rooftop. A towering head peeked above the shingles, as though shyly observing me, cartoonish in its attempt to conceal itself, obscene in every other sense. Its eyes, vast, pale, and lidless, locked onto mine, and in an instant I knew. The shadows were not the true predators. If there was a hierarchy in this nightmare ecology, that thing sat smiling at the top. A sudden sizzle snapped through the air at the far end of the street. The light there flickered, dimmed. I was standing in the center of the cul-de-sac, exposed. I sprinted toward the bend, hoping to reach the next street before the lamp died. I was 10 meters away when darkness swallowed everything. I stopped so abruptly I fell backwards onto the pavement. The shadows surged in the same breath, claiming the absence of light like a birthright. I felt one brush my shoe. At the dead end, the towering thing still lingered behind the house, half hidden, patient, watching. The streetlights are failing one by one, herding me toward the final corner like livestock. The shadows stalk the perimeter, breathing hunger into the air, thick and metallic. Their prey has nowhere left to run. And that thing, its enormous eyes crease at the edges. I think it's smiling. My phone is at 1%. The streetlight above me just flickered. Oh no,